presentation of the Loop 601 project, and we have several people to speak to it today.
Thank you,
Welcome, Mayor-elect.
Hi, Ron Oler, Mayor-elect. There you go for your minutes. Thank you, Commissioners, for being flexible and choosing to meet on this day, and thank you, everyone in the audience, for coming out today. I want to make it clear that my administration is 100% in favor of this project. This project is critical to revitalization of downtown. I believe earnestly within the next 3 or 4 years, we'll see $100 million invested downtown. This first corner is the hinge pin of starting some of these other investments. Now, some people in the community are opposed to moving this forward because we don't have a master plan downtown. So, and it's true. Previous administration never did come up with a good master plan, but I assure you, we will work on a master plan downtown. We're about 2 weeks to closing on this project, and there's local banks that want to invest in this. So I 100% moving forward with this to get it rolling, and then we'll continue. When I spoke to the Economic Development Corp last week, I said, this is going to take 2 to 3 years to finish the build. By that time, we'll be doing other projects downtown. So the downtown will take off even before this is completed. So if you don't know a little bit of the history of the building, it was built in 1969 after the explosion. Terrible, horrible, very bad, no good day in Richmond. It was built to attract the Elder-Beerman stores out of Dayton, Ohio, to build a huge department store downtown, and it was great. It was wonderful. And we have someone in the audience tonight who helped make the promenade. Now it had its season down there, too. The city owned the building and the 2 parking lots for decades until Bonton Stores bought the Elder-Beerman companies and another company, and Bonton owns buildings. They didn't want to lease from the city, so we sold it to them at a reasonable price, but we maintained the 2 parking lots. Later, when Bonton went bankrupt, some council members, county council, EDC, got together and we purchased the building for $300,000 to keep it in local hands to take control of it. Our hope was the first developer had a really good idea of some commercial space on the ground floor, some apartments on the upper floor, but once they got into it, the reason Elder-Beerman agreed to move there is because we built an explosion-proof building with poured walls and poured roof, lots of concrete. So to put windows in it and doors in it, put apartments up was becoming cost prohibitive. And the other biggest problem was this building was designed not for a building with 30 kitchens and 30 other rooms, but is designed basically with 4 restrooms in mind. So there's the infrastructure underneath it is totally wrong for any other purpose other than what it was. And unfortunately, that's not going to come back. Big box retail stores aren't coming back to downtowns like Richmond. I wish they were. And even our mall struggles to fill, so COVID took care of that. So it's nothing we did, it's just the whole country changed on retail. So moving forward with this, demolishing that building, recycling all the concrete and steel as much as we can. Just like the EPA today had an announcement, a press conference at the fire site, the first step is to clean the asbestos off the old steel, mangled steel, and they're selling it to a local recycler. So kind of the same approach here. But getting these market rate apartments downtown, another argument was we're competing with the building owners who want to put lofts downtown, but it's a different customer, a different clientele. You're going to do your full presentation in a minute, right? So their clientele, the people who want to live in this apartment complex, is different from people who want the privacy of having an upstairs loft. This is something entirely different. And from what I understand from the market studies, the housing studies, and hearing from 2 large local corporations who are willing to do some contract rental on multiple apartment units so they can move staff in and out. There's a good market for this. So I hope you'll move forward with this, and I appreciate your time today.
Yes, good afternoon. Valerie, Shaffer, President of the Economic Development Corporation, and I have with me here Deron Kintner. He is the developer with Flaherty and Collins, who will be co-presenting today with me.
Welcome.
So here you have a rendering of the corner of 6th and Main of what this property could look like. It still has to go through a lot of architectural work and design, but this is a rendering that we felt could closely represent what this corner could be transformed to look like should we pursue with Loop 601. Ron already did a great job of presenting the history of the property. I have to give credit, though, to former Commissioner Ken Paust here with us today, who really led the charge in wanting to take control of the fate of this property and put together a task force of city and county representatives and several community leaders. There were 15 or 20 of us that really studied the opportunity of this property and made the decision to take the leap and acquire the building in August of 2018. As Mayor Oler said, we paid a mere $300,000 for it. And once we closed on the property in January 2019, we immediately started looking at redevelopment opportunities. And as Ron again mentioned, that was just not a feasible redevelopment project. We could not find a developer interested in that opportunity. This was just a little bit of the layout that RQAW put together for us with the feasibility study, because we had a whole marketing plan and put together an RFP that we sent out to developers, really trying hard to redevelop the structure as it currently sits. But again, we're unsuccessful in that endeavor. This was a rendering they put together of what the existing structure could be transformed into. However, the exterior that you see there, that alone cost $7.3 million. And that was estimated, 4 or 5 years ago, so imagine what that would have cost today. So once we determined that redevelopment was not an opportunity, we shifted to the idea of a new development on the property. The task force that Commissioner Paus had put together, when we decided to buy the building, we decided as a group that we would hold the building for 3 years and give it a fair shot of finding a developer to redevelop that property. That resulted in nothing, and so we had determined at that time we would tear the building down and then go out and market the development pad that also includes the existing parking lot as one development opportunity, with the opportunity to close Service Street in between the existing structure and the parking lot today. So that's when we stumbled across Flaherty and Collins. Flaherty and Collins is a state-of-the-art class act when it comes to developing. I'd really like to turn it over to Deron, just so you can hear about all of the developments across the state of Indiana and across the nation. When we first met Deron, Commissioner Paus, myself, and Sarah Mitchell in my office, we took a road trip and we physically saw properties that they had developed in Indianapolis and Brownsburg and Fishers to see firsthand the quality of the development and to envision of what that would look like here in Richmond, and we were thoroughly impressed. Since then, we've had a lot of conversations with community leaders in communities where they built, and have heard nothing but great things about the partnership that they've come up with and their ability to deliver on what they propose for the community. So now I'll turn it over to Deron.
Thank you, Valerie. Again, Deron Kintner with Flaherty and Collins. We're based in Indianapolis, but we really do work all throughout the Midwest and beyond. And we're kind of laser focused, and these are the only type of projects we do. If this was a office building or a hotel, we would say we could probably pull it off, but you'd probably find someone else a little more experienced, qualified to do it. But we only do multifamily apartments and typically urban infill projects like this. Always public-private partnerships, working with communities to deliver projects that the market would support on its own. So as Valerie mentioned, I was here probably 3 years ago now, to talk about another project, and then just in kind of casual conversation, the Elder-Beerman site was mentioned, and trying to figure out something to do with that. And I think the whole rest of the meeting, my head was on the Elder-Beerman site and not on the other project, I hate to admit. But like I said, we've done probably 30 to 40 of these projects. We believe we've done more than anyone in the country, not really a category that anyone tracks. But again, it's all we do. We don't go and buy land and do, traditional garden-style apartment complexes like you're used to seeing. We probably did that the first 15 years of our existence, but for the last 15-plus years, we've been focused on these urban infill projects. And I said this in the meeting last week with the EDC, is the only thing these really have in common with apartments that you're probably used to seeing, what I was used to seeing, is people pay by the month to rent there. But these are intended to be highly amenitized, feel more like a resort than an apartment. So it's very communal. There's a lot of energy, very dynamic, and we try to have all the bells and whistles you could think of, because the people who live here will by and large be renters by choice. They could live elsewhere, they could own a home, but they're attracted to this sort of lifestyle and this living arrangement. Typically, we see about 60 to 70% of the residents will be young professionals, and the other 30, 40% are empty nesters. I think 8, 9 years ago when I started, that might have been a 90-10 number, but what we're seeing is a lot more empty nesters are also desirous of this sort of living arrangement. They want to get out of the home and the yard they got to take care of, and they too want to live amongst others and be able to walk to to get coffee or walk to dinner and, to events and festivals and whatnot. So that's what we see really across the board in our properties. So we have no reason to think it wouldn't be exactly that here as well. So I've probably missed a lot on the company, but yeah. So again, just in Indiana, we've done projects similar to this, certainly in Indianapolis, but also, smaller communities, and that it doesn't have to be a major metropolitan area. She mentioned Brownsburg and Fishers. We've done Kokomo, Mishawaka, LaPorte, Michigan City, New Albany, Columbus, Indiana, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, all similar projects to this, and all have been successful. I mean, quite frankly, projects like this a lot of times are more successful than the large high-rise projects you see downtown somewhere. Those are a lot more expensive, come with a lot more risk, but we've done this enough to feel pretty good that if we build this, that the people of Richmond will, and not just people of Richmond, people from all around will be drawn to it and want to live in this sort of environment. Another kind of demographic note, typically in our projects, our residents come from one of three buckets, not literally a bucket, but yeah. A third of them will already live in Richmond and just will choose to live here. Another third would live in the area but outside of Richmond. And then the last third are new to the entire area. So we track that, and again, it's pretty consistent amongst all of our properties regardless of where they're located. So, that's not only brings more people to your city, right? It helps with the local income tax and more people spending money in your businesses. So I thought it'd be relevant to mention that. So this is our project in Fishers. If you've been to Fishers lately, you know that it has grown substantially. We were the first development that occurred there of any size. Certainly there had been development over the decades in Fishers, but this was the first large-scale one that was on one of their municipal parking lots, and after this, it's led to, a few hundred other apartments being built, a new office building. We like to say it led to the IKEA and the Top Golf that's there. So this is in Fishers. It's, I think 250 units. It has a lot, about 17,000 square feet of retail and a parking garage. So, and the projects I'm showing you, you would expect to see similar quality, similar amenities that we put there, we'll do here. There's no bait and switch or anything like that. This is what we call Whiskey River in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. It's similar size here. It's also about 150 units, like we're proposing here in Richmond. Has probably been our most successful property of anyone we have in our portfolio, despite Lawrenceburg being the smallest city we're in by far. But it was something that was sorely needed, and the people of Lawrenceburg love it. And it's drawn a lot of people from northern Kentucky and Ohio as well. The Arbuckle in Brownsburg, similar story. If you've been to downtown Brownsburg, up until about 5 years ago, you had Town Hall and you had a CVS and a Walgreens. That was their downtown. So they were trying to create, different than here, you guys have a authentic, long-standing downtown. They were trying to create one. And we were selected to be the first project there. And again, a similar project to what we've seen in Fishers and elsewhere. And we're finishing up, it's been so successful, we're just finishing up a phase 2 that'll open in February that will accompany this project. Yeah, we talked a lot about the amenities and how these are supposed to be feel like a resort and not an apartment complex. And, so, we have club room, a lot of times billiards or other games. Bikes are important to our residents. They're active. So we have a bike room, and sometimes we include a bike repair shop that, they can work on their own bikes there. A business center. And this is even more important since COVID. We always had a fair amount of people who worked from home or, would be in sales and, their home office was their apartment. But that's an increasing number and has grown a lot since COVID. So not only having space for them to work or co-working space we call it, but a lot of them are wanting individual conference rooms. So if their boss is coming in for the day, they can have some privacy in the conference room, or if they need to have a call, they can do that there. So we're adding those as well. Fitness center is big and include on-demand fitness, like group fitness workouts, but essentially you may keep it, but you don't need a gym membership if you live here because we'll have essentially all you could want in our fitness rooms. We always put a pool and I got ahead of myself. That says pet spa, not pool. So I mentioned bikes earlier being our residents, bikes being popular with them, even more so our pets. So we won't get a lot of children in this sort of environment. We welcome them, but it's just if you have family with children, you're probably looking for a different sort of setup. But we do have a lot of pets, and with that we have a pet bath, pet spa, and pets will be very, very common. We'll have a dog run or dog park that you would call it within the property that residents can let their dogs out in to use. May or may not have a guest suite. Sometimes we do. Those aren't, this varies by project. And then again, the co-working lounge space, which really is just a lot of couches and chairs, and people can come, with electricity hookups and whatnot that people can hang out and do work in. So this is just, if you can see it, this is just a list of projects that we've done, the cost and kind of our role in them. We're always the developer, obviously, on the front end. We're also generally the contractor, especially if it's in and around Indiana. You start getting out of market where we don't have the relationship with subs, we'll hire a local general contractor. But we also handle property management. So you'll always be interfacing with Flaherty and Collins people, whether it's me, I'm not going anywhere, but also the on-site staff will be Flaherty and Collins property employees. So again, just further list. Again, I think there's 20 or 30 listed there, but I think we're approaching or past 30 now in the number of projects we've done that are very similar to this.
So just want to reinforce what Emily had already mentioned, that this project really does build upon investments that have already been made in and around the downtown. That includes the Whitewater Gorge Connector Trail, the Gorge Activation Plan that I know the Redevelopment Commission has been very involved in, as well as the Loop that you've been involved in, and Elstro Plaza. That's a great success story for downtown Richmond. So we really feel like the location of this development complements all of those existing investments that have already been made in our community. So now we'll get into the project scope and financial contribution. So I'll invite Deron to kind of talk about what the scope of this will look like for Richmond.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. We're looking at about 150 apartment homes here. Once the architects really dive in on the design and they insert walls and corridors and, mechanicals, that might not be in 149, it might be 154, but it's generally 150 units. What you'll find is a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom, but it's really 1 and 2 bedrooms. There'll be a few studios and maybe a few, I don't even know if there'll be 3-bedroom, probably large, what we call large 2-bedroom. But the bulk of the building will be 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. And again, that's, most of the apartments you're used to seeing probably have a majority of 2 and 3 bedrooms because they're, there's kids and families and whatnot, and that's not what this is built for. The interior and exterior amenities that we went over earlier is what you can expect to see here. We've also have about 4,000 square feet of first floor commercial space there to help activate the street and provide even more life. We didn't want to put too much there in large part because retail is really tough and it struggles everywhere. And because it is tough, we didn't want to be additional competition for the existing businesses that have been downtown for much longer than us, and it wouldn't be fair to come in and throw too much there. But we do want a little bit, like I said, try to activate the street and provide even more energy. And then our residents will use both the existing parking garage as well as the surface parking that fits on the site there. It's probably about half and half is how it'll eventually play out.
So again, this is just another view of the rendering to help you envision what this project will look like on the corner. Okay, so this is a rendering of what the property will look like on the development pad. You can see parking on the east side of the property, sort of in an L shape. That's what Deron mentioned, having some surface parking, but we do intend to allot 100 parking spaces in the city garage as well, so residents can choose to rent space in the garage or utilize surface parking. But there'll also be some parking along 6th Street as well. So you might describe the walk-up potential.
Yeah, they're along 6th Street. Most of the apartments especially the upper ones, there'll be no choice, but they'll be entered through the internal corridors, which you'll also be able to do on the first floor. But we'll also, along 6th Street, have external entry, and really build up like a townhome or a walk-up unit that you would see like in Chicago or somewhere. Some residents love that, some hate it, some want to be on high floor possible, others love that direct access from the ground floor. So it also kind of helps differentiate the look and provide some activity there along the street level.
And then the area in red, that will be the 4,000 square feet of commercial space that Deron mentioned. And the area in yellow, that will be where the majority of the interior amenities will be placed. So now we get into the project budget. This is roughly a $36.6 million project. That, of course, is subject to change as the project actually goes out to construction bid. We have Flaherty and Collins investment at $21.667 million plus. And that plus means if the project scope increases, Flaherty and Collins will be responsible for making that additional investment. We will not be asked as a community to invest any more of the project if the costs go up once that's put out to bid. Is there anything else you'd like to say about that?
Let's hope it doesn't, but yeah, that's true.
And the reason it took us so long to get to this point, to bring this project forward for your consideration today, is the amount of time that we've spent working on drawing down state programs. We worked for 2 years on the READY grant application to the IEDC, and Wayne County's allocation of $2.95 million is allocated to this project. We only have $2.5 million as part of the actual financial commitment to the project because we're reserving some funding to make some improvements in and around the site that might be needed after the building's demolished. Emily talked about a potential pocket park across the street as an entryway into Elstro Plaza. There could be some upgrades to the parking garage that need to be made. So we wanted to retain some of those ready funds to be able to invest around the site to ensure that we have the financial support needed for that. And then we have the redevelopment tax credits. Flaherty and Collins was actually the applicant to the IEDC for these tax credits, and they were awarded $4 million for this project. But once those tax credits are actually sold, it will net about $3.6 million that can be infused in this project. And so that left a gap of $8.9 million for our local commitment in order to bring this project to fruition. What we are proposing to complete that gap is a cash contribution from the Richmond Redevelopment Commission in the amount of $3,450,000 that would come from existing TIF revenue. And then we have roughly a $3.1 million TIF bond that will actually generate $2,450,000 in cash towards the project. It's a $3.1 million bond, and then after interest and fees, that's what leaves us with the $2,450,000. And I'm really happy to share that we've worked very collaboratively with both Wayne Bank and First Bank Richmond in town, who agreed to split the bond purchase and be partners with us in this project. And that is simply a project-based TIF bond that is not pulling from the existing TIF district. That will be an allocation of 90% of future tax revenue from this project for 25 years. So we will not be pulling any other funds from the TIF district. And then there is a $2 million ask that will go before the Wayne County Council and Commissioners this evening from the Consolidated Edit Fund. The meeting that Deron referenced last week with the Economic Development Corporation Board was also asked for that $2 million in Consolidated Edit, and the board did recommend approval to the county. That will be further considered this evening. And then lastly, we have a $1 million contribution from the Wayne County Foundation. They have created a new impact investing program where they are looking at taking money out of Wall Street and investing it on Main Street. So essentially, they're looking at impactful community projects that they see value in, that they know will really turn a tide in the community. That is a loan. That is not a grant. That loan is with the terms of to be paid back in 5 years at a rate of 5%, and that is being proposed to also be paid back from the Richmond Redevelopment Commission, roughly $210,000 per year over 5 years. And then we have household impact. Because we don't know how many individuals or couples will live or move to the community to live in this property, they're estimating that spending could increase anywhere from $600,000 to $1.8 million per year and create an incremental 4 to 11 jobs, mostly in the service industry, and 28 restaurant jobs. Again, $34,000 to $44,000 of ongoing annual tax revenue, mostly derived from income tax from those jobs. And then I really want to mention the high demand for housing in the community. So when a lot of people think about this project, they're looking at from the viewpoint of the impact it will make to our downtown and our revitalization efforts. But I'd also like for you to consider the impact that it will make to the demand in the housing market. Back in 2021, we contracted with Tracy Cross and Associates to conduct a housing study, and then they indicated we had a 1.1% vacancy rate for market rate apartments in Richmond. Very, very tight. And further, they identified that we needed about 225 market rate units over 5 years developed in this community. Since then, we have updated that study. And we just got the results last week. It's in draft form, so I didn't want to include these numbers until it was finalized. But the demand for market rate housing has since increased to where we need 800 units over the next 5 years. And they're estimating that 575 of those specifically are needed in Richmond, and then the greater 800 in Wayne County. So the demand has only increased for this type of housing. And in 2021, of the recommendations as a result of that report, they really thought we should focus on housing for young professionals, couples without children, or in early stages of family formation, and empty nesters. So we really feel like that this project really fits what was recommended at that time that we pursue in Richmond and Wayne County. So just to kind of, in closing, talk about the future of downtown. So in addition to Loop Phase 2 that you're well aware of and engaged in, as well as the Gorge Activation Plan, now is a great time for us to be making this investment in our community, because we're able to not only invest in this project, but we're also investing in our future property owners. We've been fortunate enough to have Richmond Common Council recently adopt the strategic investment plan that was developed by several community leaders through leadership at Wayne County government. But you've allocated or appropriated $1 million from your American Rescue Plan Act funds to invest in downtown revitalization. So under Mayor-elect Deron Oler's administration, they will be tasked with developing that grant program for existing building owners. So I've heard a lot of people say, why are we investing in this big development when we're not helping our existing property owners? But we are doing both, and we can do both. And so now is a great time to demonstrate that we're investing to invest in our citizens that have owned properties for many years and need that additional help from the community, but also investing in our future through a large-scale development that can really be a catalyst for future downtown revitalization.